We don't show prep. So, so he had no idea.
I just barely make it in.
I'm sure you can tell, but we don't show.
I mean, let's put the cards down on the table here.
Miami Hurricanes, yeah. You know the name already. It's Mercy, ha ha. It's a 6-ring Kane show. Can't forget the name though. Got Jazz, Blue, Vision, DJ break the game code. Ain't no changing them, ain't no breaking them. Real Portland live from the Hard Rock Stadium. Ball 14 for the orange and green. We see the 6-ring champs. It's more than a dream. This is life on the field. Beyond 100 yards, a hurricane that's never still put a damage to your squad. The 6-ring Kane show. The 6-ring Kane show. The 6 Rings Kane show. You know.
What's wrong with us? Seriously.
What's wrong with us? We're Miami Hurricanes fans.
Welcome to the 6 Rings Kane Show, a show dedicated to Miami Hurricane sports, featuring the legendary Larry Bluestein, Jazz Santana, Vish, and Danny Gillette. Let's go Canes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another 6 Rings Kane show, which looks suspiciously like the DJ and Vish show. DJ, thanks for joining me on this Monday night.
Hey, no problem, buddy. It's been a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I couldn't do the show yesterday morning, so we had to skip, but here we are.
I know, and I couldn't do the show yesterday morning because I was tired, so it all worked out.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we're going to be doing 11 a.m. starting next week too. We don't adjust to the time change; the time adjusts to us. So, so when the clocks leap forward, we go at 11 instead of 10. So come by on Sunday at 11 a.m. right here, and you're DJ and I. But Blue is up in New York. He couldn't make it. Jazz is in the throes of baseball season at the high school level, where he's a coach now. So you got DJ and I. DJ, we actually have some news this time. I know we've been stretching for topics. The Canes made a coaching hire. There's some position changes, and the combine, which we previewed on the DJ and Vish show a week ago, happened. So we can talk about that as well. So actually a lot to get to, despite it being the off season.
Yeah, and very busy time of year. A lot of positive news, and that's not always been the case at some points. But no, it's all very exciting, and it's good to see Miami represented nationally and on a larger scale at a lot of these events, because that always hasn't been the case either.
Yeah, we had some really good combine performances from our players. We'll get to towards the end of the show, but first let's talk about the running backs coach. So to refresh a little bit, the Canes lost their running backs coach, tight ends coach, and defensive backs coach. So this is the first of 3 positions they need to fill, and they've done so with Denver Broncos assistant coach Favian Upshaw. He played quarterback in college and worked with Mario at FIU, so Mario is obviously familiar there. DJ, your thoughts on this hire?
Had to take myself off mute there for a second. No, I like the hire because I think there's familiarity, like you mentioned with Mario, and I also like the NFL ties. He's going to have a lot to work with, and I think when you look at the style of offense the Miami Hurricanes run, it's very similar to an NFL style. So I think the combination of, having a guy like Fabian Upshaw on the staff, as well as, these Miami Hurricanes running backs being NFL ready, and the fact that it's an NFL style offense, all mesh together really well. I think it's going to be a really good fit. Truth be told, I don't know how much coaching this backfield needs. It's probably the best in the country, but I think Upshaw will definitely be a solid addition to the staff. and I'm going to be really excited to see what he does and how he coaches and utilizes the running backs in terms of if he has any input in the say of rotations or if he puts different running backs out there in different situations. So I think it's a really good hire, and I'm very optimistic about it.
Yeah, I mean that is something that Coach Merritt did, right?
Yep.
He handled the running backs. It was not Dawson. So yeah, I'm assuming this is something Upshaw will do. Shout out to Dan Barry. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, I think one of the interesting things here is we did talk about, this is kind of across the three positions that be really important that they fit culturally, that they, understand the way that Mario Cristobal runs this program, and it's really about work ethic. Like if the other guy is going to be sleeping 4 hours a night, you're sleeping 3. That is the approach, right? It's to not just out scheme and out think, but outwork your competition. And so it puts a very high standard of work on people associated with this program. And starting out his first staff, I don't think the staff has necessarily bought into that. I think obviously this one is now. So I'm really excited that this is something that he has background with, because, he eventually got to the staff we had last year, which I think we agree was great. But it took 4 years to get there with a lot of missteps. I mean, we were a year removed from Lance Guidry being the defensive coordinator and Mario having to fire almost the entire defensive staff other than Jason Taylor. So, it hasn't all been perfect in terms of hiring. So I'm glad he went to a known quantity, someone that he's familiar with, that he trusts, that he knows will meet the standard that the rest of the program is adhering to. To me, that's an important thing, to not disrupt and not cause issues there. And he's not going to do that. And again, like I know he's not. You have a couple of options here when you hire, right? You're going to either go a running backs coach off of another staff, right, in college, or if you go up to the NFL level, it's not going to be a running backs coach. No one is going from NFL running backs coach to college running backs coach. That's just not going to happen. So, they went to the NFL level, which means you're necessarily going to get someone that's not really doing the exact same position, because you got to offer them like a position upgrade. And so he was quality control for the Broncos, one of the better teams in the NFL. Exposure to Sean Payton, who you can certainly debate his character, but I think his football acumen, it's really beyond debate. So, he's coming from a place where he's been in a good system, like you said, and since we do run a pro style system here, I think it is a good fit in that sense too. Yeah, I am curious though. I think the one open question is he's probably going to have to handle the running back room, which I know everyone's like, it's loaded. Who wouldn't want this job? It's also complicated.
Yep.
And the fourth guy on the depth chart would probably start at a lot of your schools you're going to be playing against. It's hard to get those snaps around, right? So we'll see how he handles that. But yeah, overall, can't complain about the hire. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy with it. And, I think when you look at, what this coaching staff brings and what this coaching staff has, it's a lot of NFL experience, but it's also, a good mix of, coaching from some of the best programs in the country. So it's not just about, hiring a running backs coach from the Denver Broncos. It's also hiring a coach that has experience in high level situations in, at a high level in the NFL, and, being able to be prepared for, playoff like situations, high pressure situations, and things like that. So I think this is a really good hire in that way as well. This isn't a coach who's kind of new and has to feel his way through, adversity. This is a coach that's been through it at the highest level and, knows how to adapt.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we'll see how this plays out, and we'll see how the rest of the staff goes. So do you think this is any kind of indicator in terms of the tight end coach, which is kind of the other position on the offense staff that's open? you think he'll also look to the NFL level, maybe for not a tight ends coach there, or how do you see this pursuit going?
I could see him look to the NFL for sure because, I think when you look at the level that this program is at right now, it's becoming, and it has been, over the last, couple seasons, been working towards becoming an upper echelon program. And this could be an opportunity for an NFL level coach to really make a name for himself in the college ranks and, maybe even, get a college head coaching job, because I think you mentioned, and you were absolutely correct in one of our previous shows where you said that, an NFL head coaching salary and a college head coaching salary are all basically a lot alike. So I could see him going back to the NFL and trying to dip into there and see what he could get.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think now it's probably, and I haven't done the work, so I can't really talk about that, but like with specific names, but I would look to coaches he's intersected with. I think as much as Upshaw has not been a college running backs coach, I think he was low risk as far as Mario is concerned because he's a known quantity, someone he knows personally. So I think that's probably a place to look potentially for these last two hires they need to fill in terms of who's he intersected with in the past that he knows will comfortably fit in with this staff dynamic. That'll be something to watch for there. And whoever this tight ends coach is, they will have a new player to work with, DJ, in that position. So Cole McConaughey has moved from defensive end to tight end, despite us, having tight end one Elijah Lofton allegedly returning, because apparently Alex Bauman wasn't the starting tight end. That's an inside joke, but DJ, your thoughts on McConaughey at tight end? Do you think this is more of a depth move? Do you think this is more reflective of his ability to play tight end, or potentially just a lack of depth at that position in relation to defensive end where we're pretty loaded?
Well, I mean, come on, Vish. We have a lot of depth, but I do think that this is a referendum on the tight end position in the sense that there's not a lot of tangible. There are bodies there, but there's not a lot of proven depth. And yes, a defensive end is not is not a tangible tight end or proven tight end in terms of depth. But excuse me, I think it kind of sounds the alarm bells about maybe what the coaches think of the tight end position. I mean, I'm not sure I necessarily feel comfortable about that position, heading into the season. And granted, the season's still a while away, but this to me just means that either they're not happy with the depth that they have or it's not developing quickly enough. But I mean, there is not a lot of depth at the tight end position, no matter how many bodies we have, because a lot of it's unproven.
Yeah, it is unproven. I think this is just another kind of body in there he's athletic, right? He was always going to be like an athletic end. So in theory, some of that can translate. There is, as you said, not a lot of depth. In addition to last year's starter, Bauman, obviously he's out of eligibility. Brockshot transferring in the middle of the playoffs to the team we ended up losing to is not great for us, man. But that is kind of, how that did deplete the depth enough where, I think we've been talking a lot about when you start looking at the depth chart, where's the gap, and we, I think, both felt needed to get another tight end from somewhere, and the somewhere ended up being within within the roster.
Defensive
so
end, tight end is kind of elite.
Well, with McConaughey moving to tight end, that means you got Elijah Lofton, you still got Luka Gilbert. you got some freshmen coming in, but yeah, I think this is kind of. I agree to lead, but I think it's something that they need to get another player from somewhere, right? I don't think that was. I don't think that was too much that was really debatable.
Oh yeah, this needed to be done. I'm just saying.
Apparently, it was actually. I was about to say it wasn't debatable, but apparently it was debatable because we had like a 20-minute argument about it on the show a few weeks ago. But I think the depth chart is what it is, and so I guess
anybody who says that we have a lot of depth at tight end, I mean, we clearly do not. And
yeah, I think that's fair to say. Yes, that the tight end depth is not where we needed it to be. So this move was made. So this gives excuse me. So it's Lofton, Luca Gilbert. There's a couple of freshmen, Gavin Muller and Israel Briggs, Jackson Carver, who has never been healthy since he's been here.
Yeah,
hopefully this year he is, and then Jack Nickel. So yeah, McConaughey has an opportunity to be. We like to use a lot of tight ends to run block at the very least. I mean, he has the opportunity to get snaps there. So, because again, two freshmen, a couple of injured guys, and then Luca Gilbert hasn't really played a lot. Elijah Lofton is again much more of an H-back. So, I agree, it's not like ideal that you have to find someone, but I'm glad like they again. All I can ask of from these coaches ever really is that they identify problems and try to fix them. They're not going to always make the right answer, make the right decision. But I really get frustrated with coaches who was like, can't you see there's something wrong here? Clearly here, I'm sure they tried to get a veteran tight end in the portal and probably were unable to do that. And so they looked inward and they, addressed a position of need, especially considering how deep the team is on the defensive line. Even with Bain and Mesidor going to the NFL, like having the depth that they have at defensive end, I think made this decision a little bit easier that McConaughey was going to struggle to get snaps on defense and actually has a chance to get some snaps at tight end.
So all joking aside, does this make Elijah Lofton tight end 1?
Well, I think he was going to be anyway. So I think that, let's be real. The argument devolved because our co-host was arguing that Elijah Lofton was the tight end 1 last year.
Yeah.
Which he was not. It was Bauman. Like, that's just factual. So I don't know what that even was. It went off the rails completely. But I think he'll come in that way. But I think depending on I think Luca Gilbert's another option to be the more traditional tight end because again, Lofton is not really, let me put my hand in the ground, lined up next to the tackle type, and we do run a lot out of that formation. Both running and passing, but run a lot of plays out of that formation. And even with someone like Elijah Arroyo, who's a much better blocker and much more traditional, we still did a lot of flanking him out and bringing in, Cam McCormick 2 years ago to be to be that traditional, because even though Arroyo could play that, we didn't really want him to take all that pounding because he's our receiving tight end. So I'm wondering, even if Lofton is more capable than we think at that position, if we're really going to try and force that in, because it's probably not the best use of his skills.
No, but let's be honest here. They haven't really used him well the entire time he's been here. So why would they start now?
I will say,
but it is frustrating how they haven't been able to get a good spot, put him in a good spot to succeed.
Yeah, and I think part of that is, one of the things we've talked about is he doesn't really have like a natural position that fits.
Yeah.
Like if you think about if it was 20 years ago, you'd be like, that guy is the best fullback in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that position doesn't exist anymore. And so now what do you do with him, right? So he plays tight end, but he plays off the line of scrimmage a little bit. He's in an H-back role. We do things like run reverses to hand him the ball. We do line him up at fullback occasionally to hand him the ball, lead block every once in a while. But he's for a tight end, he is what 6'2", 6'3". That's like on the lower end of height that you would really accept out of a tight end, right? He's much more of an H-back. Just as an example, Luka Gilbert's 6'7". Bauman was 6'5". We start looking at these other guys. Jackson Carver is 6'6". And then also, again, his best skill for Elijah Lofton is catching the ball and kind of playmaker with the ball in his hand. And the Canes really used the offense has been very much a battering ram, right? And that's not necessarily where where Elijah Lofton excels. So this is not a knock on him. He's a unique talent. Yeah. I think that's what makes it hard to position him into a certain exact position. I think McConaughey, again, he's 6'5", 250. If you need the battering ram type of tight end, he could potentially do that. I have no idea how good he is going to be at route running and catching the ball and all that. That's going to be but I do think if you tell him to go block someone, he can probably maybe even do that better than Elijah Lofton can at this stage. So I think it's an interesting move. It's a depth move, obviously, because we're very short on players. And, if the freshmen don't work out, if someone gets injured, you're really there's no one left. I mean, we ran into that in the bowl game, right? It was Bauman and Gilbert. Luka Gilbert didn't play a lot last year, and he was the backup. Because obviously at that point Lofton was injured. He gave up his body to make that big catch against Ole Miss. And so, now that Bauman leaves and we didn't really add any veterans, we added a couple of freshmen. You're basically going into the season with, all you have is Elijah Lofton, someone hasn't played before. So I think it makes a lot of sense from that standpoint because Luka Gilbert just didn't get a lot of snaps last year.
And it's so tough because Elijah Lofton does so many things well, but he doesn't do one thing overwhelmingly well enough in order to, make him stand out as a tight end. He's kind of an in-betweener in that regard. And that's not to say he's a bad player or a bad athlete at all, because he's a great athlete. He just doesn't have enough of that tight end skill set in order to be a, de facto number one tight end. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it depends on what they're asking the tight end to do, but based on what we've seen, it's a lot of blocking.
Sit there and look pretty and let the wide receivers do the rest of the work. Yeah. And, I think in that respect, McConaughey, I'm guessing he's going to be able to block well. I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out. But...
Well, looking at the without mentioning Will's profile up real quick to see, I don't know that did he play any tight end in high school? Is this all new to him? If it is, it's going to be quite the learning experience. Let's see, high school defensive line. Yeah, no, he didn't play. As from what I can tell, he played no offense in high school. So this will be a learning experience for him in terms of route running and catching and blocking. But physical attributes are there. And again, the Canes need depth. And I think very importantly, he wasn't going to get much playing time at defensive because that position is loaded. So I think it's a good move for him, good move for the program. Now we'll see. Even if Lofton is tight end one, I feel like he'll flank out a lot, and there'll be another tight end on the field, just like we did with Arroyo 2 years ago when he had such good hands that we would, oftentimes put him in the slot just, as a receiver and actually have another tight end on the field. So I think if Lofton reaches his peak of what we want him to do, there will be a lot of that. It's a lot of him lining up in the backfield as well. It's kind of an H-back and still needing that other tight end because, again, we like to run the football. We play power football. And I know different personnel, different offenses here because, again, Dawson's shown that as well, that he'll adapt. But even running the offense that we have with Cam Ward, which I expect this year's offense to be in between what we ran last year with Carson Beck and what we ran with Cam Ward, somewhere in the middle. Yeah. But even that, again, we had a lot of two tight end when Arroyo was getting a lot of snaps. So you're going to need guys to play, and McConaughey is another option there. We'll see how well he acclimates to it. What's a new position for him?
Well, I think a lot of the skills at defensive end can be transferable to tight end. Getting that quick first step on your man being able to use your hands to kind of, get that initial first push. And the blocking part of it, I don't think should really be too much of an issue. We'll see, but when you look at how a defensive end plays, and when you look at how a blocking tight end kind of goes about his business, then I feel like there's a lot of things that are similar to the two positions. So I'm wondering how much of a jump it will actually be, even if he hasn't really played tight end before.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. DJ, I think you're going to agree with Parrish's comment here. They target the tight ends for. They do all the blocking with that.
Parrish, I've been screaming it from the mountaintops for, let's see, 3 or so years now. I mean, they really don't do anything. I mean, they're more out there, and that's not their fault. They don't get targeted enough at all. Now, our receivers are really, really good, and that's not taking away anything from the receivers. Our receivers are really good, but when you're an opposing defense, you really don't need to plan for the Hurricanes tight ends at all. You can just basically focus all your attention on the receivers, and I would like to see them utilized more. So I definitely agree with you on that one, Parrish. It kind of
drives me nuts. I would say that's like a year-to-year thing, because Elijah Roy got targeted a ton. And last year we didn't really use the tight ends nearly as much. So I think it's definitely, we'll see what I think a lot of it's how Dawson chooses to use his weapons next year. We're playing a little bit more open. Then also, where does Mensah want to go with the ball? I think I think this will show up in the draft too, which as we talk about the combine towards the end of the show. But for all of the last 2 years, it's kind of interesting because out of our receiver position, as much as we're like, wow, like we got all these guys. I mean, Malachi Tony's the only like superstar at that position. If you like we had Jacoby George and Restrepo and Sam Brown and Horton. Those guys, I mean, Horton might end up at Bama. I think, didn't he transfer again now? I forget. I thought he did. But anyway, like those guys are not in the NFL. And then this year, there's Daniels and Marion were the primary targets outside of Malachi. And
Restrepo's in the NFL, I think.
I mean, on a practice squad, right?
Yeah.
He played. I think he might have gotten on the active roster a couple of times last year. But I mean, okay. So yeah, he is in the NFL. But I mean, these are not superstars. So I do think it's a lot to do with what the quarterback is comfortable doing with the football. Because again, throwing to Marion and CJ Daniels versus Bauman. I mean, you're kind of. It's not. I mean, when you look back at it, we squeezed an incredible amount, both our quarterbacks last 2 years, out of this passing game with what's not A-level receiving talent.
Yeah.
And even Malachi Tony, I mean, he's more of just a football player. I mean, how do you describe that?
Yeah, an athlete.
His position's receiver, but he gets he's great at that, but he's also the running back and everything else that you want out of a player. So he's everything else. So we'll see, because I think this receiver room, again, it's always an adjustment when new players come in. I do think on a talent basis, we've probably upgraded this year over last year. So we'll see. I think a lot of it is on where the quarterback chooses to go with the ball, though, because or you can look at it the other way, right? Because Elijah Roy was a NFL tight end and a second-round pick, and out of that group we discussed, maybe that's why Cameron's throwing the ball, because he's Elijah Roy. And then you turn around, now it's Bauman. That's obviously a very steep drop-off from Arroyo. So maybe at that point you're not throwing as much to the tight end. So it could just be a personnel thing also.
Well, it was very evident early on that Beck was very comfortable with the receiving group. And that's not a knock on Bauman or any of the tight ends. You're comfortable with who you're comfortable with. With Cam, it was X. With Beck, it was Tony and CJ and even more to some degree, and Marion as well. So, I mean, it's all dependent on who the quarterback is comfortable with. And, I think it's going to be interesting to see who Mensa is comfortable with when practices get going and stuff. I can imagine Cooper Barkeke is going to be one of those guys, and it'll be interesting to see who else he kind of targets and, develops a strong rapport with.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think one of the things we see with Dawson, this is one of the things with offense, puts a lot on players making decisions on the field. He gives them options and then they make the decisions on them. So you see that with the running game too, when everyone's like, why don't you run this way? No, it's actually all in the play, and the running back needs to find the right gap. Like, we don't do a lot of, you have to run through this exact hole. We do a lot of, here are your options. The running back has to figure out which gap to hit based on the way the play is unfolding. Same thing with the quarterback. Like, we don't do a lot of predetermined read stuff where we're going to throw the tight end here. It is a lot of what the quarterback is seeing in real time where he sends you with the football. So, yeah, we'll see. Mensa's obviously a wild card there. He should, you would think, have a good chemistry with Cooper Barkate. So that that one, this should be a good relationship. You obviously have Malachi coming back. And yeah, we'll see how the rest. We broke down that in detail earlier in the offseason, but a lot of talent coming in from other schools as well. So how that develops and how comfortable Mensa is with them and the tight ends might determine, where the ball goes more.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Mensa's ability to move with his legs may offer some more chances for the tight ends to kind of not improvise on their routes when Mensa starts scrambling, but it could allow them to have the ability to make more plays instead of just running straight down the field and hoping to get the ball.
Yep. Now on the other side of the field, we still are awaiting a coach, defensive backs coach, passing game coordinator. We don't really have an update on that. Just quick, any thoughts, DJ? Do you think that hiring of Favian Upshaw, again, from kind of cross paths with Mario in the past, do you think that means that? Do you think that's any indication of where we might go with the DB coach? We talked about this on our show a couple of weeks ago, but there's very quickly there were rumors about Patrick Surtain coming in. Those were immediately shut down. So.
Yeah. I mean, we know that Mario's not exactly snappy with his coaching hires. So as long as we got a coach by the beginning of August, we'll be good. But I don't know what the heck's going on there. Maybe it's going to be an NFL guy. I'm sure Mario has something up his sleeve, but we'll see. I'm very curious to see who fills that spot, because I thought the secondary played really well last season, and even in difficult situations, all of them seem to rise to the challenge. So I'm really interested to see who takes over that job.
Yeah, no, it will be interesting. Or to see if there's some kind of shuffle, right? A lot of teams don't have different coaches for different position for safeties and for defensive backs. So we'll see. I don't think it'll be internal from the sense of off the current staff. I think, I guess that obviously I'm thinking there would be Mike Bromfright, who but he got kind of demoted out of that position, so I don't think you'd bring him back into it.
I feel like if it was internal, it would have already been done by now.
That too, yeah, you're right. I agree with that. That's another good point. So yeah, I don't think you go from quarterbacks coach for 4 years to then direct, because he was 2016 to 2020, he was the cornerbacks coach here. Then go to director of recruiting and then go back to cornerbacks coach. Doesn't feel like that's what would happen here, but
No.
I mean, again, we don't know. We don't have sources or really know anything, but so
I wish we did.
But we're just speculating. I mean, I hear stuff and I'm not a reporter. I'm not gonna run down and meet with Deep Throat in the garage to vet the stuff. I wait for the real reporters to report things that we can talk about it. But I don't think it'll be internal in that sense. So yeah, we'll see. But I would look to who Mario's coached with in the past or coached or intersected with that he's comfortable with as a potential place to look for landing that coach. All right. Last thing, DJ, we went through all 10 of the Canes prospects that were going to participate at the Combine a week ago. That Combine has obviously happened. Couple of storylines coming out of there. First, the one everyone had their eye on. What are your thoughts on Ruben Bain's short arms? Air quotes.
I mean, this is I can remember, honestly, people making a big deal out of Will Campbell's short arms when he was drafted 4th overall by the Patriots. Arms always seem to be a huge topic of discussion, whether they are huge or whether they're short. They always seem to be a focal point. But if you're complaining about Ruben Bain's short arms, then you clearly haven't watched football and you probably shouldn't start, because if short arms are a knock on Ruben Bain, then give me short arms for every single player. The dude is an absolute monster. He's productive. He can play with a high motor. He can get to the passer, stuff to run. I mean, if he has short arms, then oh well. I'm drafting him 100 times out of 100.
Yeah, no, and I always I always wonder because like you said, he's a football player. He played both end and tackle a lot in college and excelled at both. So you always got to wonder who amplifies nonsense like this and what their end game is. Like there's a lot of NFL people that are picking the teams and all that would love to have Ruben Bain there. So now you're trying to top the top 5 out of taking him where he should go.
It'd be a real shame if he fell to 31 to my Patriots.
There's no way he's fallen to the Patriots.
No, honestly, I think Akeem Mesidor, if anybody falls to the Patriots.
Yeah, Mesidor is more in that range than Ruben Bain. But I also got to wonder, agents of other players.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And so all this noise comes out, and so I just I think this is nonsense.
It's absolute BS.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't think anyone's actually going to not draft him because I think his arms are too short. It's ridiculous.
I mean,
so the other, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it's just nuts. I mean, you watched him play during the Ohio State game, and he was sweating buckets, and yet he was still functioning like it was the first play of the game on every single snap. His motor is absolutely incredible. He's such a physical player. He was a dog from day one. I mean, I don't know what more you would want out of a player, but the arm thing, like you just said, is absolutely crazy. I don't know.
I think it's people looking for faults, and and again, there's some nefarious stuff there in terms of benefiting from him falling.
Well, yeah, I bet you it's other teams that want him that aren't in his draft spot say, "Oh, he has short arms."
There's some of that. Again, there's agents for other teams that push these narratives to try and get their player drafted higher.
Absolutely.
All right. The other thing that kind of stood out was, well, first of all, Karsebeck was booed at the Combine, which I don't think I've ever seen a player booed at the Combine before, but he. Of the quarterbacks that threw, again, not everyone throws there. He definitely looked to be the best quarterback there, which is, not something you would think. How well do you think he helped his draft stock? Frankly, getting booed at the Combine is so weird that I think he just navigated through that well. Probably showed a level of maturity that. Those players shouldn't have to show, but he was able to showcase that. So how do you think he did?
I think he did really well, and I think he was able to kind of make a name for himself, not in the sense that people needed to know who he is, but just to be able to show NFL scouts, okay, I'm for real. This whole Miami, run was not a fluke. I was able to do it at Georgia. I was able to do it at Miami. Now I'm putting together a solid combine, and I'm, have one of the best arms in the country and an incredibly intelligent football player. So I think he did really well. I think the booing at the combine, having the fans there was actually kind of funny, but he handled it really well. And, I think when teams look at his resume and they look at how many high stakes games he's been in, combined with his overall football IQ, which I've always maintained is one of the best in college football, they're going to be very happy with what they get. And, I know he is a little bit older, but a lot of these older quarterbacks are, putting together, solid seasons for NFL teams. I mean, look at Bo Nix, for example, over in Denver. He's an older quarterback, and yet he was able to, use his maturity and skill set to, lead the Broncos right up to the AFC Championship game. So I think I think the whole age thing is overblown as well, because I know people were knocking him for that too, but I think he did really well, and I think whichever team gets him is going to get a potential steal.
Yeah, and I think you look at the spot he'll get drafted in, right? It's not going to be first round where they're going to expect him to come in and start right away. So that's where like you said, the maturity, the football IQ, and again, it's physical ability is there too. Will help him a lot, and I think a lot of teams will be comfortable with understanding that he's not going to cause an issue when you're like, all right, you're the backup, right? And just learn. I think he'll be fine with that. I think he interviews really well, so I think he'll do well. I think he'll make a team and probably be a backup on a team next year, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, no, I think someone will draft him and be very happy that they used a pick on him. Did anything else stand out to you at the combine from I just saw Markel Bell running a very quick 40 time for a man his size.
That stood out to me because I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I am glad I am not going up against him or having to deal with him. I mean, just generally speaking, overall, you look at some of these, defensive linemen, 6'5", 300 pounds, just moving like a wide receiver, and you're like, holy crap, I am glad I am not going to get tackled by that defensive lineman. I'm glad I don't have to face him, on Saturdays. But, I thought Markel, you talk about steals. I think Markel Bell is going to be a steal for any team that gets him. I understand he may be a little bit of a project, but he has the size, he has the strength, and, he has the speed to be a tremendous asset. And, I bet you some teams are going to be hoping he kind of falls to them and, they get a chance to work with him and develop him, because I think he has a really good chance to be, maybe not a Pro Bowl level player, but a guy that can play 10 to 12 years in the league and make a very solid impact.
Yeah, no, I agree. And he's one of those guys that I feel like you said, can just be around and have a long career.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh yeah, he's just been really good for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, before we wrap up here, Parrish did ask a question earlier. What hiccups do you think will pop up this year, similar to South Sky they did after the SMU loss?
Good question.
Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think a lot of it might come from the defense this year. Like, I'm not sure how the defensive line is going to perform. I was very impressed with the way the younger players were able to step up. We saw Lightfoot, be able to play at a high level. We saw other players be able to develop better, but I could see the run defense taking a step back this season, and I feel like that could be something that could show up, and they'll be able to address it and get it corrected because this coaching staff is very good at that. But I do have early concerns about the run defense. I mean, you lose Mesidor and Ruben Bain. There are obviously going to be holes in your defense, but I do think I see a hiccup there. I don't really see hiccups with the offense, so to speak. Maybe a little bit of an adjustment period through the first couple of weeks, But if any hiccups occur, I more so see them on the defensive side of the ball this year.
That's interesting because I would have gone the complete other side. I think because I think to the extent that I think our defense is variable enough where you know, we can adjust a little, like, because we obviously this year we got used to getting pressure with our front four, but we also blitzed a lot, right? It wasn't just that, so we can, you know, be a little bit more blitz heavy if we need to or whatever. I'm curious what happens if offensively we can't just shove the other team out of the way. The offensive line, you know, is replacing everyone but McCoy. And as much as like we're very high on Jackson Cantwell, and you know, he could have gone to the combine, he would have lifted the same as the NFL prospects, and he's straight out of high school. So like we have these guys we're really high on. They have not played together yet. Some of them have not played at all on this level that we're counting on to start. And so, you know, we got very comfortable last year knowing that we could pretty much run the ball. We could push people out of the way and run the ball. Sometimes there was frustration that we were slowing the game down to do it and maybe not opening up the margins we need to because that takes a lot of time. But it's, you know, what happens if we can't do that? Like, not that the offensive line is going to be bad, but we are talking about replacing 4 starters off of what I think was the best offensive line in football last year.
Well, now you also have a running quarterback too. Don't forget.
Yeah, that's true. That can open some things up. But I'm just curious if it gets to the point where, hey, we're not able to just move this team,
right? Like,
because you know, talking about self-scouting and adjusting after games that were played, that's one that I would look at and say, what happens if we can't do that?
That's interesting. Okay, yeah. No, I feel like for run support, I feel like a lot of it's going to come from the safety position. And, you know, guys like Thornton and, you know, Bryce, you know, Fitzgerald, even though he may be able to play more of a, you know, passing defensive role now, I think any sort of run defense might have to be taken care of by the safeties. And although that's not ideal, I feel comfortable with the safety room.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the safety room will be okay. And again, it's new faces, but I think these are guys like, I mean, we're talking about like the guys we brought in, they're all experienced. So I'm not really, you know, they're adjusting to our defense, not necessarily, you know, playing at this level. So yeah, we'll see. So actually, the correct answer is Parrish. If we knew that answer, we'd be on the staff and go ahead and tell them.
I'm sure they would all love our input so much.
Well, let's not lose to SMU first before we come to Jesus. So anyway, we'll see how that plays out. We might get an idea in the spring in terms of, you know, how some of that stuff is going. Obviously, we're nearing spring ball, although I still haven't seen an official, you know, schedule. They usually roll that out around now. So we can see that we'll have a little bit better idea. But,
really? Some programs have already started spring ball.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, have you seen a schedule? I have not.
No, I haven't either. I'm just saying it's interesting.
Yeah, we can. So yeah, it is interesting. We have more options because we can literally do it from January. Obviously, we were playing in January this year, but you could literally do it any time in the spring, weather-wise, where other teams,
you know,
later in the spring when it's not freezing outside. So yeah, it's kind of interesting that we have more flexibility to do it earlier, but haven't really looked into it and haven't really done it yet. So. But we'll see as that comes out. Stick with us. We will definitely have more breakdowns there. DJ and I will be back on Sunday. We're going to do some position breakdowns heading into spring ball. Maybe start with tight end.
Maybe.
We'll do some position breakdowns. Yeah, once the spring schedule comes out, we will be talking about that. Yeah, Parrish's thing maybe in this month. That could be And that's true, actually. This is an obvious point, one that we should have realized. But yeah, when the playoffs ended towards the end of January, you're probably going to take a little bit more time before you get the spring ball.
No, it's crazy because some Big Ten teams are starting March 28th. So it's like, wow, it's coming up quick.
I mean, it's still a month away almost. It's the end of the start month.
True. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, but I do think I think Parrish is right. I think you'll see us go later into the window just because of the way the season extended.
Will it be open to fans? Or...
there's usually a few practices that are potentially open to media, and then which obviously includes us. And then the spring game, they have not said where it's going to be yet. So we can't use our stadium because the tennis tournament is there in the spring, and then immediately they then take that stuff down and set up for Formula One. So, so the stadium is not available. There's been 2 places, so we've been doing it on campus lately. No, the campus, it's the soccer stadium and the track and field they do there and stuff, but that is not a big venue. So they've been doing invite-only ticket stuff, which it's fine. We've been able to attend, so it's not like that's that big of a deal. But I think they might be looking for a bigger venue now. Interestingly enough, Inter Miami's new stadium opens at the beginning of April. Could potentially be an option as well if they're not using it that day.
Maybe that's why we haven't heard anything. I don't know.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. Don't know where the spring game will be, but yeah, and Parrish give a little bit more information than the ones in Orlando open to the public. Yeah, they sometimes do practice around the state a little bit. But the Green Tree ones, some of them are open, Parrish, not all of them. And sometimes they'll open it for like an hour or half an hour and let you watch part of it, and then they throw you out to actually do the actual stuff they don't want you to see. So we'll see. They release the schedule out. They usually tell you which ones are open, which ones aren't. So yeah, we will pass that. Well, it's media only information. We will not pass that along, but it's up to the public. We will definitely pass that along.
We'll be looking for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we should get. In general, I get press releases into my mailbox, so
I'll have to figure out
press releases every time anything happens. I might get an email. So so assuming I'll see it. So anyway, we're gonna have buckets tomorrow and Wednesday. The women are in Duluth, Georgia, for some reason, is where the women's ACC tournament is this year. So they open play on Wednesday.
Like Georgia.
And then, Georgia Tech is there. But
yeah, true.
A little odd that's not in Atlanta. It's out in the sticks. So we'll be talking about that, as well as the men are ranked finally. After beating Boston College of all things, that got them ranked. But we'll talk about that as well. We have shows Tuesday and Wednesday, and then this show will be back on Sunday to talk about
position battles,
position battles, and hopefully we'll have a spring schedule. Real quick on the reclassification. We will hold that until Mr. Bluestein is back, because he will definitely have more insight into that than we will. So Parrish specifically asked me, we'll see any reclassifications this cycle. That'd be for potentially 28 kids reclassifying to 27 and signing next year instead of 2 years from now, was when Malachi Tony did. He actually was a 26 kid that reclassified and signed in 25. So Larry will definitely have more on that. Kane's beats 20. Look, lost a couple of games. It'll be fine. Don't worry, Boston College is coming down the next weekend. That's a get healthy weekend.
Yep. Always is.
But anyway, and then also
they're really loving Blake James over in Chestnut Hill right now.
Oh my God. I mean, that has gone as obvious as it was going to go. I just don't know what they were thinking.
They want Blake James out.
I can't imagine why. What's going wrong with that guy running your athletic program? Who the hell knows? Anyway, DJ, thanks for hanging out with me on this Monday.
Yeah,
thank you everyone for watching again. The two of us will be back on Sunday at 11 a.m. now after the time change. So if you don't reset your clocks, it's 10 a.m. your time. DJ, thanks for hanging out with me, and we'll see y'all next week. And go Canes!
Of course, go Canes!
Now I must find the outro button. There we go. Go Canes!
The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rig Kane Show. Yeah. The 6 Rings Kane Show. You know.